Well, from the missing to the mysterious, let's head over to the UFO Report. Time for little Timmy Seanor.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
Going to start off with a little sad news here because little Timmy Seanor, he's getting so busy during his real life away from Spaced Out Radio that we are now searching for his replacement. And Tim will be here until we find that person to take over the UFO Report. I don't like it. Don't like it whatsoever, because who am I going to do this to? But it's one of those things, Tim, where sometimes you get busy, man. And, I don't want it to be a surprise for our audience or anything like that. But, you've got some really cool things coming down the pipe that need your attention, and including your family. And I don't like looking for replacements, put it that way.
Yeah, and it's been so much fun, and your audience is amazing, and I'm definitely not gone for good. I'm sure I'll be around to fill in whenever needed, but life happens, and I just don't have enough time to commit what it takes to deliver a good report. And so I'm sure you'll find someone fun and interesting to replace, as you always do, and the show will go on.
It always goes on, my man. It always goes on, and we'll definitely find someone to come back and take that over for you, but it's hard to see you today. You're wearing camouflage. Don't even know you're there. Just, it's like a head that's moving on its own. It's very, very weird. But no, I want to say a big thank you for everything that you have brought to Spaced Out Radio. And Tim, I've gained a very good friend in you, a very, very good friend. I don't have a lot of friends outside of this, as you know, and you're one of the very true good guys who's trying to do it right in this field. And I want you to know, and I want our audience to know what you mean to me, because it's the position that you do is very hard. Finding someone who will come in a third hour late at night to come on in and do this and still is extremely upbeat and positive and pushing this in a direction, keeping our audience up to date with what's going on, not just on the YouTube side, but our radio side and everything. And I know you got a lot of projects. People need to know you're somebody who is always working their butt off to try and bring stories to the table. And it's not just on here. It's your documentaries that you want to make, your television shows that you are working on, and you're editing, and you take care of your family. And you are somebody, the one thing I love about you, man, you never get too high, you never get too low. And for somebody like me, who is all over the board like a roller coaster, you've brought a real semblance of peace and of mind to me. And that's been a real stabilizing venture for me. So I think it's really cool, man. I think it's really cool, the kind of person you are. And the other thing that I want to say about Tim is he is somebody who has grown a lot in doing this. He started off very nuts and bolts, that it can't be anything else. And he has used this episode or his time with us as a learning experience about everything from what is being covered above what's being said, to opening his own mind to possibilities that shouldn't actually work. You can't put a round ball in a square peg, or a square peg in a round hole, pardon me. And yet Tim's realizing that in this field, it's possible. And Tim, I want to say, I'm so glad that you and I have become friends. I know we're going to be doing some traveling together. I know that, on the show, it's not going to be the same without you, but I know that there's a lot of projects behind the scenes that our audience will hopefully get to see in 2024 that are going to show how tight our friendship and our brotherhood really is.
First of all, thank you so much for even inviting me to take this position, because it is exactly what you said. It's been a journey, and I've definitely made a brother out of you. We are kindred spirits, the two of us. And so, yeah, we've got a long future ahead of us. And really, I can't thank you and your audience enough for, you know, helping me along and, bearing witness to the journey that I've been on, which is still very much in the beginning stages. So, yep, we're going to continue to work together, and your audience will be kept in the loop of everything I'm doing, and they'll get to see all the fruits of our labors.
Give
And
him a
I
little,
can't wait to share it.
give him a little hint. What are you up to?
Some hints. Oh, I mean, I can't. I can't. I really can't even get into everything. I shouldn't get into it. I shouldn't get into it. It's too deep, and I don't wanna talk about myself, really, ultimately. That's not why I ever came on the show. It's never been
Oh,
about me, you know? Um, it's
this is about
always. Pardon?
this is about you, man.
Well, I appreciate that, and there'll always be that.
Uh,
But the UFO report has never been about me, and I've never really shared too much of my work here, just because this is your show. I'm never really trying to sell my work in any way. I don't need people to really, go and support me in any way. I just hope that they get to see, my journey with you, and then any fruits of my labor, of course, will make it available to everyone. So,
and you know what? So many times there is tension, and the UFO field especially wants to bring drama in the air. There is no drama here. I mean, Tim and I are tight as ever. We talk almost every day, and he has become one of the most important voices in my life, and that's going to continue. And so, hey, there may come a day where Tim is a little less busy, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, man, I'm ready to fire up again." Well, guess what? We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. But Tim, from all of us at Spaced Out Radio, I know that these next few shows, you're going to be with us until I can find a replacement as good as you. Okay. So hopefully, it for my sake and your sake, it doesn't take too long. But I just want to bring that announcement because I don't want people talking, oh, did you hear this? Did you hear that? There's none of that crap going on here.
yeah.
None of that.
And thank you so much. That I didn't expect to hear that. That was really sweet of you to say all that, Dave. Thank you so much. You, you're a beautiful man. Much love.
I am a beautiful man. Not as gorgeous as Terry Hall's mustache, but
Tell
still,
you,
I mean, that's a 10 out of 10 right there
you
for a
can
lip.
swing from those babies.
Terry Hall's mustache. Yeah, but yeah, thank you, Tim, for everything that you have brought. You made us better. That's probably we're going to get into it with the UFO report here, but I want you to know that you made Spaced Out Radio better.
Thank you.
And and I don't think that there's anything bogus about that. Okay, I don't think that there's anything more that I can say than those words right there. Is you made us better, and I appreciate you for doing that.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks.
Don't
Appreciate
cry.
that. Yeah.
Don't cry.
I'm
Don't
holding
cry.
them back. Holding them back.
All right. My favorite person, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, back in the news, holds an off-camera media roundtable. What happened here, man?
Yep. So we're just getting the documented report coming from defense.gov here, and I'm going to kind of give us the expurgated version. So some of the highlights, and there were a couple, were that he is announcing that in this phase of the reporting mechanism for the National Defense Authorization Act, or AARO, launching their website. The mechanism is for current or former US government employees, service members, or contractors with direct knowledge of alleged US government programs or activities related to UAP, dating back to 1945 in particular, and to contact AARO to voluntarily submit a report. And so these reports will be used to inform AARO's congressionally directed historical record report and investigations into alleged US government UAP programs due to the Congress demand in June of 2024. So the form is going to be intended as an initial point of contact with AARO, and it is not intended for conveying potentially sensitive or classified information. So that's one of the highlights, I guess, that we can take from that. Now, in the Q&A, excuse me, portions of this, he's asked to distinguish a little bit more between the two reporting offerings, because obviously there is also one that has been set up to take physical reports from pilots. And so that portion of it is going to be demanded to be reported directly through the classified system as called Gen Admin. And so that's for military operators. And then other people that are public pilots will also have a reporting system, but that again won't be through AARO. So they're really looking for historical reports through that website at this point. And then we can also see that they're looking through Northcom and CENTCOM and Indo-PACCOM for those other reports coming from military pilots, and some that will be siphoned through the FAA. So when asked to clarify about these two reporting systems, there's obviously some gaps in the reporting, and he covers how that's going to look. But it then definitely dips directly into David Grusch. Now, before we get into that, did you want to comment on this new website and how specifically they're really not looking for any details? They're really looking historically back to 1945. And by the way, they really do seem more interested in the clandestine programs, and they're asking specifically for people to out the existence of programs that were outside of the purview of Congress. And so it looks like they're siphoning through all of that. Nowhere in here do you see the word UAP. That may not be the focus of interest, at least. I'm just saying, they've definitely, split AARO off into looking into deep programs, and they're not looking into the skies as much as we had hoped. But Dave, please, your first take.
Well, going back in history is always a good start because you learn from it. Okay. You learn from the mistakes, you learn from the evidence that was collected, where it was hidden. And the one thing that I love about going back in history is you find out where the files are, because none of this, like NASA wants to say, ever gets thrown away. It gets put somewhere. Okay. If you have photos of an alien and you are in a government agency, you're not going to take them to the steel bin and burn them. Okay. They go into a filing reporting center. So going back in time to refer to some older cases, whether it's UFO or not, or like you said, clandestine adventures, I think it's great. Okay. I would like to see more of that. I would like to see what the US was up to in the 40s and 50s, bringing in all this technology, how we went from a propeller plane, the fastest plane in the world, the P-51 Mustang, and 10 years later, we're developing Mach 3.3 plus SR-71 and the
Stealth
A-12
and
and
stealth
stealth
technology.
technology. Okay. That intrigues me. That gets me going. And Tim, we're going to continue with the second part of this when we return on Spaced Out Radio as Tim Seanor on the UFO Report talks about David Grusch, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's opinion. Something tells me these two men have no love for each other. We'll find out why when we return on Spaced Out Radio. Way to grab your emotions and focus on the show, man.
Yeah, that was a heck of an outpouring. I didn't expect that, bud. Beautiful, beautiful man.
Well, you know what? Tim, as you know, like I said, I don't have a lot of friends. Okay. And I'm quite introverted. And people may not understand that, but you know what? You're somebody who has broken down those walls, man. And I know I'm a tough guy to get along with at times, you know. But Tim, you know, I owe you a lot of credit too, because the one thing through this journey over the last couple of years since we've really got to know each other is every time I pointed something out, even though you disagreed with it, you still went and checked it out. You know, when I would say to you, read between the lines. And a lot of people just wave that off. Like, I've got my belief. I'm sticking to it. Screw it. But you're somebody who would actually go that extra mile to see where I was coming from. And I don't know how many holy shit moments you had throughout the time of this show. And even in our private conversations that we've had on these topics, you know, and that's a real testament to the person you are and the growth that you have really put forward in not just this show, but in your knowledge of the subject, you know, and it's a real testament of who you are. And that's hard to find in this field, man. And, you know, that's why I've kind of been protective of you. You know, you're kind of like my golden gem, you know, that just shines. And this is a hard day for me, man. This when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, it's tough, man. It's very tough. But I also understand you and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And you got a lot on your plate. A lot on your plate right now. So, I mean, it would be extremely selfish for me to sit here and say, "Oh no, Tim, you're not allowed to go. You're not allowed," you know. But watching you grow has been incredible, man.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little choked up. I wasn't expecting all that, and this isn't something that I thought you would say on air. But that's beautiful, and it's mutual, obviously. And here's something that I'll share with you that lets you know that I bring what I learn here into my everyday. My son, who's 11, came to me and asked me if it was okay if he used ChatGPT AI to help him to write script for Roblox games that he's developing. He's 11. He's big into it. And I was like, wait a minute. There, like, normally you'd think like a social media thing, and you're like, a normal parent reaction to that might be no, especially with so much AI question out there. But after our conversation, I was like, absolutely. And he's writing games like 10 times faster. He's totally enveloped into his learning, and it's been amazing. And I never would have taken that leap of faith after having conversations with you and people from this show. So it's amazing, and I'm watching him develop, you know, and integrating it into what he just does. I just think it's cool. So yeah, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure there's more little things like that that I'll notice once in a while that I can be like, I remember that was because this person from the chat was like, yeah, but think about it in this way. Or Dave said, hey, consider this. So
What are you going to
absolutely.
miss? What are you going to miss?
Oh, I mean, geez, bud, I'm going to miss just talking about the news and keeping up on it with you. And, you know, just having this fun dynamic. I don't do anything like this in any other form of my work, really. So it's been fun. I was never on camera, as you know. I was always behind camera. You put me on camera too with your show. So that was all new to me. I'm very, more comfortable with that because of you. I guess I'll miss these conversations. Um,
Here we go.
the learning.
Here we go in the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives. They're always free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and every major podcast network out there, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and so much more. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Our good man, our good friend, Tim Seanor, is here tonight with the UFO Report, and we're talking about the love-hate relationship between Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who opened up about his feelings regarding David Grusch, the whistleblower.
That's right. And so the question came forward today. So David Grusch, the whistleblower who came forward to News Nation, says he reached out to you to share his discoveries and that you didn't follow up. So do you follow up and investigate his claims? He says he still hasn't heard from you. So ultimately, why haven't you two connected? And Dr. Kirkpatrick replied, so Mr. Grusch, since AARO has stood up and since I've been director, has not come to see us and provided any information. The question came back, and so he says that he briefed you before and assumed your position in AARO. Have you had a chance to follow up on any of the inquiries that he made or talk to any of the witnesses? Kirkpatrick came back with this answer. So the last time I believe I spoke with Mr. Grusch was when I was at the J2 US Space Command about 5 years ago, and it was not on this topic. Now, we have interviewed a whole range of people, over 30 now. I think we've interviewed most of the people that he may have talked to, but we don't know that. We have extended an invitation at least 4 or 5 times now for him to come in over the last 8 months or so, and he has declined. So we see here now that that's a little bit conflicting because recently, I believe Mr. Grusch came out publicly and stated that he was absolutely fine to go anytime and he'd never been asked. So there is some conflicting information coming forward exactly on this topic. Now, this interview was, in fact, the 31st of October. And so it's pretty fresh information in this interview. I'm a little bit surprised by some of this response. Now, some new information for me was that these two people had met before. And according to David Grusch in his interview in their initial meeting, he did disclose quite a bit of information, including where to look. And so these 30 people that have been investigated are part of that so-called non-existent conversation. So it's a little bit conflicting information. And so, Dave, please, I would love to get your take on the Grush claims.
You know what? I want to start off by this, though, Tim. Do you not find it ironic that David Grusch, his new hand, excuse me, excuse me, his new handlers, Jesse Michaels and his business group, work with Peter Thiel? Peter Thiel, former billionaire or current billionaire, former co-head of PayPal, has defense contracts protecting computers from hackers for the Department of National or for the Department of Defense in the U.S. Peter Thiel, very close to David
And Enigma,
Grusch
obviously.
and Enigma Labs, funding Peter Thiel, funding Enigma Labs, which Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick is allegedly, after he retires within the next year to 18 months, is allegedly going to be working with Enigma Labs. So I don't understand this tension and this irony between this trifecta that all ends with Peter Thiel at the top. Now, does that not catch you off guard, Tim, as an outsider looking in, that these two gentlemen would actually be butting heads over UFOs when the main man who is funding a couple of very close projects to these gentlemen is right on top of them? I don't know if I would want to be upsetting Peter Thiel. He seems to have a lot of pull. This is also a man who has thrown a lot of money politically behind Republican representatives, running for president, running for Congress, running for governor. Ron DeSantis being one of them in Florida. Where does this go? How does this work? I mean, you got two of the biggest stars in the UFO world right now clashing, and yet they're both tied to the same guy.
Right. I think it's kind of clear that Kirkpatrick is the DOD's brakes on this topic. Now, he may have a bunch of information, but it has to filter through at the pace that they're comfortable with, right? And so, obviously, even with these downed balloons that we can get to at some point, maybe and talk about tonight, that they haven't been comfortable releasing any imagery or even talking about it until maybe now. We may get some information in some videos. This is the same thing with this topic. Now, David Grusch came out and did a News Nation interview. That was full tilt, 100%, lots of information. Now, Kirkpatrick may have already had 100% of that, but it was his job and responsibility to vet, verify, and filter all of that information before it can be disseminated as fact, fiction, or other, right? And so for me, looking on the outside, looking in, it's all part of the mechanism. You can even look at the reporting websites and they look similar to the Enigma reporting website. There's definitely the same engineers working on some of these websites. So looking at it, like I said, as an outsider looking in, I definitely see that at some point they let the cart get in front of the horse. And that's what we're seeing. Disclosure push succeeded, but at the same rate, it did it without a lot of verification. So now the DOD has to come and clean up, and they assigned Kirkpatrick to do so. I'm sure he would love to get out of this hot seat and take on a nice high-paying position somewhere where he can remain more anonymous. But at this point, he's absolutely on the hook for this, and he's taking the responsibility to slow disclosure down.
All right. Let us, before we move on, let me make a comment on that, because this disclosure movement, confirmation movement, whatever you want to call it, has been, I mean, how hard has it been to cover this subject over the last number of months, especially with all these different new roads being built, with new people popping up left, right, and center, okay, getting into the game and making voices for themselves. We've seen this happen very, very quickly. And we've also seen the military last year, the military branches say, we don't want to deal with this anymore. We've seen the Pentagon basically try and railroad this subject. And now it seems like they put it on Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's hands to really hit the emergency brake on this. That's very interesting. Very interesting point you made. Because sticking with Kirkpatrick, he also says that they have found balloons and no UFOs. Interesting. Talk to me about it.
Exactly. And so there's a great new report coming out from the drive.com, and they're talking about the allegations that classified orbital sensing systems have been used to detect and image, and in some cases in high detail, UAPs that are without immediate explanation. And they've got all mixed up with the same images that are of mundane balloons and other things like that. And that's how we've seen this classification come forward. And they love classifying it all as UAP. And so they have also been government documentation that appears to point to the possibility of UAP detection by classified orbital systems, which is incredibly interesting. So obviously, the ODNI issued a 12-page report saying that AARO is investigating the 510 incidents, and its initial analysis and characterization of the 366 newly identified reports showed that more than half exhibited unremarkable characteristics. And so nearly half of those, 163, were characterized as balloon or balloon-like entities, as we know. Now, next week, the next week, U.S. fighters shot down a trio of UAPs in the course of 3 days in separate incidents over Alaska, Canada's Yukon Territory, and Lake Huron. And then nearly 9 months later, however, the Pentagon has yet to release any images or video of even one of the three events. So why does the DoD release footage from the same pods of intercepts of Chinese fighters, but not the unprecedented kinetic shootdowns over North America? Great question. And that's actually one that is being brought up now, because data release and footage is prioritized based on the geopolitical environment at the time, according to Kirkpatrick. So engagements with Chinese fighters, Russian fighters, have much larger priority in getting it through to the review process or declassification than UAPs or other similar engagements. So efforts are underway to release some of the imagery collected during those February shootdowns, according to Kirkpatrick. He continues to say, we are, however, working through those processes, which all exist, and we've got several of them actually already declassified and ready to update to our website, which we'll be doing. It says here, which we'll be doing on the next update to the website. So we're putting them out as quickly as we can get them through the proper steps. So Kirkpatrick offered no specific timeline, but explained the bureaucratic hops and hoops that have to be jumped through. Continues here in this quote, I think that it is very important for everyone to understand that it is a process for declassifying a video. Some of it is who owns the platform. So it's not just go to the DoD and ask for declassification. I have to go to the combatant command or the service that was operating at the time. What operation was it doing when engaged? How do I then make it sure that we are declassifying something that doesn't give away not just sources and methods, but also operational details? So I'm going to cut through all of his explanations because there are plenty, and we've heard them all before as an audience. But I can tell you, Dave, there are lots of reasons to not declassify something. But at this point, we know that it is his job to absolutely obfuscate this topic in any way, shape, or form he can, just to slow it down and to give the DoD a little bit of breathing room. And so another way to improve how AARO provides and handles information in the future about UAPs has been a congressionally mandated effort. And so to change the way it handles reports about these in the future, the public as well as government employees and contractors will all have to unite together and bring the information forward. Dave, we've heard this so many times. Please.
We have, and you know what? One of the things that I want to just say quickly here before we move forward, okay, because we are running out of time here, as we always do on the UFO report, is government officials from Canada during the one shoot down had already stated it was a drone-looking balloon. It was a drone. That's why the antiquated CF-18s from the first generation Canadian fighter pilots are using didn't have the ability to lock onto something that slow. That was said by then Defense Minister Anita Anand. But then we have these American generals coming out saying we don't know what they are. They could be UFOs. They could be not UAP, UFOs, they said. Why would the military do that? Why would they throw the UFO word in there when the hype has been about UAPs? And the fact that we are 9 months later that Kirkpatrick comes out and says, no, they weren't UFOs. They were drones, which we knew right from the beginning. Why play 9 months of BS on the public?
Buys them time. It buys them time because UAP was at that point not something that they could just talk about publicly. And even here we see in this quote, data release and footage is prioritized based on geopolitical environment at the time. That's why.
Well, they did their job then, right? All right, let us look at U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission confirming it's taking UFO threats seriously.
Absolutely. Give me one moment while my reader slowly and surely will bring this up. Hopefully. Let's see. It's thinking, Dave. Do you have it in front of you? Oh, wait, here we go. Here we go.
Right.
So a U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC spokesperson, has told Liberation Times in this brand new article that the agency takes potential threats from UAP seriously and continually coordinates on such concerns with federal intelligence and law enforcement partners. So the spokesman also underlined the distinction of uncrewed aerial systems, such as drones, versus UAP, which may both have prosaic and exotic explanations. When asked by Lib Times how seriously the NRC treats reports of UAP over nuke sites and facilities it oversees, the spokesman responded that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission takes potential threats from any aircraft, uncrewed systems, or unidentified UAP seriously and requires nuclear power plant operators and certain other licensees to report any suspicious activity in the airspace over their facilities. The agency continually coordinates on these and other potential concerns with federal intelligence and law enforcement partners and can take immediate and appropriate action to address any security threats to our licensed facilities. So definitely something on their radar, literally and quite figuratively here. There have been numerous reports of UAP observed in proximity to nuclear plants. Sightings of mysterious drones and others have occurred over nuclear power facilities over the US in recent years. So incident reports are created and they're researched by FBI, FAA, and they go on to consider a collaboration with the NRC when it becomes something that is a concern. And so, Dave, without getting too deep, we can consider this pretty important coming from the spokesperson that they're aware of UAP and they take it absolutely seriously.
As they should. And this is where we draw another line between UAP and UFO. Okay? Because yes, UFOs have dabbled around U.S. nuclear facilities along with Russia back in the 60s and 70s. We know that happened. We know they were playing games. But in today's espionage world, where you can create a drone the size of a fly, that doesn't mean that they still can't be picked up on radar. Okay, they have a heat signature. Very small, but they're there. And I'm no expert at that, so I'm sure I'm going to get some comments on that. Okay, but for the most part, we don't know who is flying these drones around nuclear facilities. There's a lot of bad people in this world, like one country that starts with the letter I in the Middle East, that wants everybody to party like it's $14.99, to take a Prince song. Okay, and what do they want to get there? Nuclear weapons. What better way to study nuclear technology than by flying drones? Because everybody has spies in every country. There's spies in Canada, US, and it's not just us or the Russians or the Chinese. Every country has spies from everywhere. And I think what we're seeing around these nuclear facilities and the threats there are the fact that there is a nuclear espionage going on. And it's easy to hide behind the word UAP because UAP could mean drone. It could be a horsefly. It could be a pterodactyl. It could be the Russians. It could be the Iranians. It could be a drone. It could be anything like a UFO. So I think they're onto something. I think they need to do that. But it's happening in Canada. It's happening in the U.S. It's happening in other countries. I think that's espionage. I don't think it's anything from outer space. Little Timmy Seanor, we got to wrap this up, man. Thank you so much for coming on for the UFO report. We really appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you.
And we say a big thank you to our guest, Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, coming on earlier tonight for another great night of stories as well. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter or X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.